What a powerful gospel for this morning. I mean, here we have two healing stories in different ways. And that's important for us to hear today, because we forget how healing takes place. And so we see that Jairus falls to his feet, begging Jesus to please come and touch his daughter, for she is at the point of death. And then the woman that hemorrhaged for 12 years, again, knew, had the faith and believed in all the stories that she had heard about Jesus, the miracles, the healings. And she knew if she could just get through that crowd and touch Jesus' clothing, she would be healed. And what happened? She was healed of that hemorrhaging issue. How amazing. How amazing the strength of their faith to believe that Jesus could do miracles. Well, how many of us today believe that? Now, people with a faith foundation do in fact believe that with Jesus and God all things are possible. And then we have folks that just don't have, yes, they believe, and then they just kind of turn around and ignore it all. I love NCIS, the television show. I watch their reruns. I watch their marathons. I watch them on Tuesday night. And I got so interested in NCIS. One, because once I got to be, got involved in law enforcement as a chaplain, well, I couldn't think of anything else. I was there at crime scene investigations, and I was going to myself, oh, they don't do that on NCIS. Interesting. So I watched all of it. But there was one particular story as I was praying and preparing for this morning's sermon that this story, this episode came to me. Now, I do have to admit that I probably started watching NCIS because I thought Mark Harmon was adorable. But then something happened, and I looked at other things. So this one episode had this young Marine who was drug-induced by whatever it was he ate, and everybody thought he had died, so they bagged and tagged and took him to autopsy. And I love Ducky, who just does all those autopsies. She's so wonderful. And so he unzips the bag, and he's talking to this young man. And one of the things Ducky always does is he takes his scalpel and he hits them on the chin, just to be sure. Well, this time he hit this young man on the chin, and all of a sudden it was, and the guy's eyes opened up and he sat up. And I was so engrossed in this show that I almost had a heart attack watching this. And Ducky just backs up. Couldn't believe what he was saying. Wow, that was a miracle. So what did they do? They called 911. They sent him to the Naval Hospital. And he was at the point of death, so ill that they intubated him. And he was on a breathing machine. And he never regained consciousness. But the father of that son, who didn't know he existed until this episode, sitting by the bedside talking to him, couldn't believe he had a son. And he was very young. He was married to a woman from Iraq, and they had a child together. But he didn't know that at first. And so all of a sudden they go and this guy who is now living in Mexico, retired NCIS agent, and he's living in Mexico because he had enough of the bureaucracy. So he's there, he's sitting, and he's watching his son on the breathing machine, and he's standing there, sitting there with him, holding his hand, saying everything that he wanted to say to this young man that he didn't know existed. And then the hard thing was he had to make a decision to unplug life support. goal was to be the one that would take care of the family once his son had passed on. It was healing. It was healing for all of them. It was the healing of finding a father, a healing of the father knowing he has a family to take care of because he had no one. There was healing because they were on the hunt for the people that initially gave this young Marine the poison to do what happened. And so there was healing, a healing of body and spirit. That talks to Jairus for me, of having so much belief that there was healing on some level. Then we have those people that struggle with chronic illnesses. And I can speak to this because I have a chronic illness. I am a diabetic. I have been a diabetic for probably 14 years. And I take medication orally. I'm not on insulin. And my job is to try to stay on a diet, take my medication, and exercise. Well, the first 10 years of my illness, I denied it. I took my medicine, but I didn't do anything about my diet. I didn't really do anything about my exercising. And you know what? I would feel like crap some days. I don't know how else to explain it. That was the way it was. And then I began to realize, and it rang home for me as I was preparing for this morning's sermon, was God gives people with incredible talents and the opportunities to go to schools and colleges and become amazing people in healthcare. Doctors, nurses, dietitians, everybody that has that type of degree. God has gifted them. That is a gift. So I chose to ignore all those gifts. I just keep my head in the sand like an ostrich, it's not going to get worse. It's just going to be what it's going to be. Well, you know what? After 10 years, it was, all right, Hudspeth, you need to pay attention. You need to begin to do the things that you need to do to stay well. You know, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. That's the way our world is. And with those of us with chronic illnesses, some of us are led to the waters, and some of us choose not to pay attention to it. But when we do, there is a healing. It may not be physical healing, but it's healing in body, mind, and spirit. Because diabetes out of control leads to the depression, the sitting on the couch, being a couch potato, and not having enough energy to get up and do anything, nor caring about what needs to be done. How do I know this? I'm a living, breathing example. And when I do not pay attention to my limitations, I do exactly that. I come home from work, I sit in my recliner with my little dog now, and we watch TV and accomplish absolutely zip.